This individual found that every day that they consume coffee, they appear to get a headache in the afternoon. But any day that they don't consume coffee, they have a headache all day long. When asked how long they were consuming coffee, they said they've been drinking it since they were a kid, essentially on a daily basis. This is a critical point. It appears that caffeine is the most common dietary trigger for headaches. But wait, when you have a migraine or another type of headache, oftentimes you go to the doctor and they provide you caffeine. And this appears to reduce the symptoms and severity of the headache. How can caffeine both cause and prevent headaches? Notice this individual said that they get the headache in the afternoon and typically they consume the coffee in the morning. The way that caffeine works is by binding to a specific receptor in the brain and essentially blocking the active molecule adenosine from binding and exerting its functions. Caffeine essentially binds, doesn't do anything other than blocks adenosine from binding to its receptor and actually triggering an effect. Importantly, adenosine increases vasodilation within the brain, which increases blood flow to the brain, which can induce a migraine or another form of a headache. Caffeine stops these headaches from occurring by binding to the adenosine receptor, meaning adenosine can no longer bind, can no longer increase blood flow to the brain, and the headache is relieved. However, the chronic ingestion of caffeine increases the number of adenosine receptors within the brain, which means that whenever caffeine isn't present, we have more receptors for adenosine to bind, which increases our sensitivity to the adenosine we do produce, making it more likely to increase blood flow to the brain too much and cause a headache. So caffeine itself may actually be relieving the headache, but once the caffeine wears off, the headache comes back with a vengeance. This increase in adenosine receptor density occurs after chronic consumption of caffeine. Therefore, the longer you've been consuming caffeine, such as consuming it since you were a child, makes it far more likely that when caffeine wears off, or on days where you do not consume caffeine, it may induce a migraine headache. So the task at hand would likely be reducing the amount of caffeine you are consuming, but if you want to refrain from getting a headache, doing it gradually. If it's simply just the taste of caffeine, you can switch to decaf. If it's coming from energy drinks, you can choose energy drinks with lower contents of caffeine. And if you're doing this due to poor recovery, the choice is yours as to whether or not you would prefer to improve your recovery and decrease your caffeine consumption, or maintain your caffeine consumption but still struggle with recurrent migraines. Probably the easiest way to prevent this adaptation to chronic caffeine consumption is to consume caffeine no more than 5 days per week at no more than 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. With that being said, if you would like an individualized approach to your nutrition and lifestyle to optimize your health, energy, and body composition, send me a DM to sign up for coaching.